The Iraqi Army is the ground force component of the armed forces of the Republic of Iraq, having been active in various incarnations throughout the 20th century and 21st century. The Iraqi Army in its modern form was first created by the United Kingdom during the interwar period of de facto British control of Mandatory Iraq. Following the 2003 invasion of Iraq, the Iraqi Army was rebuilt along American lines with enormous amounts of U.S. military assistance at every level. Because of the Iraqi insurgency that began shortly after the invasion, the Iraqi Army was designed to initially be a counter-insurgency force. With the U.S. withdrawal in December 2011, Iraqi forces have assumed full responsibility for security. History: the threat of war with newly forming Republic of Turkey, which claimed the Ottoman Vilayet of Mosul as part of their country, led the British to form the Iraqi Army on January 6, 1921. The Musa al-Kajim Brigade consisted of ex-Iraqi Ottoman officers, whose barracks were located in Kadhimiya. The United Kingdom provided support and training to the Iraqi Army and the Iraqi Air Force through a small military mission based in Baghdad. Royal Iraqi Army. From 1533 to 1918, Iraq was under the rule of the Ottoman Empire, and fought as part of the military of the Ottoman Empire. After 1917, the United Kingdom took control of the country. The first Iraqi military forces established by the British were the Iraq Levies, several battalions of troops tasked to guard the Royal Air Force bases from which the British controlled Iraq. In August 1921, the British installed Hashemite King Faisal I as the client ruler of the British Mandate of Iraq. Faisal had been forced out as the King of Syria by the French. Likewise, British authorities selected Sunni Arab elites from the region for appointments to government and ministry offices in Iraq. The British and the Iraqis formalized the relationship between the two nations with the Anglo-Iraqi Treaty of 1922. With Faisal's ascension to the throne, the Iraqi Army became the Royal Iraqi Army. In 1922, the army totaled 3,618 men. This was well below the 6,000 men requested by the Iraqi monarchy and even less than the British set limit of 4,500. Unattractive salaries hindered early recruiting efforts. At this time, the United Kingdom maintained the right to levy local forces like the British officered Iraq levies which were under direct British control. With a strength of 4,984 men, the Iraq levies outnumbered the army with its British set limit of 4,500 men. In 1924, the RIRA grew to 5,772 men and, by the following year, had grown still more to reach 7,500 men. It was to stay at 7,500 men until 1933. The force now had 6 infantry battalions, 3 cavalry regiments, 2 mountain regiments, and 1 field battery. In 1932, the Kingdom of Iraq was granted official independence. This was in accordance with the Anglo-Iraqi Treaty of 1930, whereby the United Kingdom would end its official mandate on the condition that the Iraqi government would allow British advisors to take part in government affairs, allow British military bases to remain, and a requirement that Iraq assist the United Kingdom in wartime. Upon achieving independence in 1932, political tensions arose over the continued British presence in Iraq, with Iraq's government and politicians split between those considered pro-British and those who were considered anti-British. The pro-British faction was represented by politicians such as Nuri as-Said who did not oppose a continued British presence. The anti-British faction was represented by politicians such as Rashid Ali al-Gaylani who demanded that remaining British influence in the country be removed. From 1936 to 1941, 5 coups by the RIRA occurred during each year led by the chief officers of the army against the government to pressure the government to concede to army demands. In early April 1941, during World War II, Rashid Ali al-Gaylani and members of the anti-British Golden Square launched a coup d'état copyright attack against the current government. Prime Minister Tahir al-Hashimi resigned and Rashid Ali al-Gaylani took his place as Prime Minister. Rashid Ali also proclaimed himself chief of a national defense government. Rashid Ali did not overthrow the monarchy, but installed a more compliant regent. He also attempted to restrict the rights of the British which were granted them under the 1930 treaty. On April 30 Iraqi Army units established itself on the high ground to the south of Raf Abana. An Iraqi envoy was sent to demand that no movements either ground or air were to take place from the base. The British refused the demand and then themselves demanded that the Iraqi units leave the area at once. In addition, the British landed forces at Basra and the Iraqis demanded that these forces be removed. At 05:00 hours on May 2, 1941, the Anglo-Iraqi War broke out between the British and Rashid Ali's new government when the British at Raf Abana launched airstrikes against the Iraqis. By this time, the army had grown significantly. It had 4 infantry divisions with some 60,000 men. At full strength, each division had 3 brigades. The Iraqi 1st and 3rd Divisions were stationed in Baghdad. Also based within Baghdad was the independent Mechanized Brigade comprising a light tank company, an armored car company, 2 battalions of mechanized infantry transported in trucks, a mechanized machine gun company, and a mechanized artillery brigade. The Iraqi 2nd Division was stationed in Kirkuk, and the 4th Division was in Al-Diwaniyah, on the main rail line from Baghdad to Basra. As noted above, all these mechanized units were transported by trucks. Hostilities between the British and the Iraqis lasted from May 2 to May 30, 1941. The German government dispatched an aviation unit, Fly Jafar 1 Quarter Air Iraq, and Italy sent limited assistance, but both were too late and far from adequate. In the end, the British were able to march on Baghdad and Rashid Ali al-Gaylani fled. After the Anglo-Iraqi War ended, Nuriez Said returned as Prime Minister and dominated the politics of Iraq until the overthrow of the monarchy and his assassination in 1958. Nuriez Said pursued a largely pro-Western policy during this period. The army was not disbanded. Instead, it was maintained to hinder possible German offensive actions launched from southern Russia. British troops left in the late 1940s. 1948 Arab-Israeli War. In the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, the Iraqis deployed an expeditionary force which peaked at 15,000 to 18,000 men. In 1948, the RIRA deployed 21,000 men in 12 brigades and the Royal Iraqi Air Force deployed 100 planes, mostly British. Initially the Iraqis committed around 3,000 men to the war effort including 4 infantry brigades, 1 armored battalion and support personnel. These forces were to operate under Jordanian guidance. During the first truce the Iraqis increased their force to about 10,000. Ultimately, the Iraqi expeditionary force numbered around 15,000 to 18,000 men. The first Iraqi forces to be deployed reached Jordan in April 1948 under the command of General Nur ad-Din Mahmud. On May 15, Iraqi engineers built a pontoon bridge across the Jordan River and attacked the Israeli settlement of Gesher with little success. Following this defeat Iraqi forces moved into the Nablus-Jenin-Tulkarm strategic triangle, where they suffered heavy casualties in the Israeli attack on Jenin which began on June 3, but they managed to hold on to their positions. Active Iraqi involvement in the war effectively ended at this point. In May 1955 the British finally withdrew from Iraq. The Iraqi authorities said during the withdrawal negotiations that a motorized infantry brigade was to be formed, based at the previous RAF Abana, a location that had been occupied by the British Iraq levies. Republic declared. The Hashemite Monarchy lasted until 1958, when it was overthrown through a coup d'état attack by the Iraqi Army, known as the 14th July Revolution. King Faisal II of Iraq along with members of the royal family were murdered. The coup brought Abd al-Karim Qasim to power. He withdrew from the Baghdad Pact and established friendly relations with the Soviet Union. When Qasim distanced himself from Abd and Nasser, he faced growing opposition from pro-Egypt officers in the Iraqi army. Arif, who wanted closer cooperation with Egypt, was stripped of his responsibilities and thrown in prison. When the garrison in Mosul rebelled against Qasim's policies, he allowed the Kurdish leader Batsir to return from exile in the Soviet Union to help suppress the pro-Nasser rebels. The creation of the new 5th Division, consisting of mechanized infantry, was announced on January 6, 1959, Army Day. Qasim was also promoted to the rank of general. In 1961 an army build-up close to Kuwait, in conjunction with Iraqi claims over the small neighboring state, led to a crisis, with British military forces deployed to Kuwait for a period. In 1961, Kuwait gained independence from Britain and Iraq claimed sovereignty over Kuwait. As in the 1930s, Qasim based Iraq's claim on the assertion that Kuwait had been a district of the Ottoman province of Basra, unjustly severed by the British from the main body of Iraqi state when it had been created in the 1920s. Britain reacted strongly to Iraq's claim and sent troops to Kuwait to deter Iraq. Qasim was forced to back down and in October 1963, Iraq recognized the sovereignty of Kuwait. Qasim was assassinated in February 1963, when the Ba'ath Party took power under the leadership of General Ahmed Hassan al-Bakr and Colonel Abdul Salam Arif. 9 months later Abd as-Salam Muhammad Arif led a successful coup against the Ba'ath government. On April 13, 1966, President Abdul Salam Arif died in a helicopter crash and was succeeded by his brother, General Abdul Rahman Arif. Following the Six-Day War of 1967, the Ba'ath Party felt strong enough to retake power. Ahmad Hassan al-Bakr became president and chairman of the Revolutionary Command Council. Six-Day War. During the Six-Day War, the Iraqi 3rd Armored Division was deployed in eastern Jordan. However, the Israeli attack against the West Bank unfolded so quickly that the Iraqi force could not organize itself and reach the front before Jordan ceased fighting. Repeated Israeli airstrikes also held them up so that by the time they did reach the Jordan River the entire West Bank was in Israeli hands. During the course of the Jordanian campaign 10 Iraqis were killed and 30 Iraqis were wounded, especially as the main battle was in Jerusalem. Fighting also raged in other areas of the West Bank, where Iraqi commandos and Jordanian soldiers defended their positions. Bat Sanaa, and the Kurds who had begun a rebellion in 1961 were still causing problems in 1969. The Secretary-General of the Ba'ath Party, Saddam Hussein, was given responsibility to find a solution. It was clear that it was impossible to defeat the Kurds by military means and in 1970 a political agreement was reached between the rebels and the Iraqi government. Following the Arab defeat in 1967, Jordan became a hotbed of Palestinian activity. During this time PLO elements attempted to create a Palestinian state within Jordan caused the Jordanians to launch their full military force against the PLO. As they were doing this Syria invaded Jordan and Iraq moved a brigade in Rab, Jordan. Otherwise the only Iraqi activity was that they fired upon some Jordanian aircraft. Iraq sent a 60,000-man expeditionary force to the Syrian front during the Yom Kippur War. It consisted of the 3rd and 6th Armored Divisions, 2 infantry brigades, 12 artillery battalions, and a special forces brigade. The 2 armored divisions were, Polaxes, unquestionably the best formations of the Iraqi Army. Polak PA 167, yet during their operations on the Golan Heights, their performance was awful in virtually every category of military effectiveness. Military intelligence, initiative, and small unit independent action was virtually absent. After the war, Iraq started a major military build-up. Active duty manpower doubled, and so did number of divisions, from 6 to 12, of which 4 were now armored and 2 mechanized infantry. Iran-Iraq War. Later, Saddam Hussein, looking to build fighting power against Iran soon after the outbreak of the Iran-Iraq War doubled the size of the Iraqi army from 1981, when it numbered 200,000 soldiers in 12 divisions and 3 independent brigades, to 1985, when it had 500,000 men in 23 divisions and 9 brigades. The first new divisions were created in 1981 when the 11th and 12th Border Guard divisions were converted into infantry formations and the 14th Infantry Division was formed. Yet the rise in number of divisions is misleading, because during the war Iraqi divisions abandoned a standard organization with permanent brigades assigned to each division. Instead division headquarters were assigned a mission or sector and then assigned brigades to carry out the task, up to 8 to 10 brigades on some occasions. The war came at a great cost in lives and economic damage, 500,000 Iraqi and Iranian soldiers as well as civilians are believed to have died in the war, with many more injured and wounded, but brought neither reparations nor change in borders. The conflict is often compared to World War I, in that the tactics used closely mirrored those of the 1914 to 1918 war, including large-scale trench warfare, manned machine gun posts, bayonet charges, use of barbed wire across trenches and on no man's land, human wave attacks, and Iraq's extensive use of chemical weapons against Iranian troops and civilians as well as Iraqi Kurds. Invasion of Kuwait and the Persian Gulf War. By the eve of the invasion of Kuwait, which led to the 1991 Persian Gulf War, the army was estimated to number 1 million men. Just before the Persian Gulf War began, the force comprised grouped into 47 infantry divisions plus 9 armored and mechanized divisions, grouped in 7 corps. This gave a total of about 56 army divisions, and total land force divisions reached 68 when the 12 Iraqi Republican Guard divisions were included. Although it was said at the time in Western media that Iraqi troops numbered approximately 545,000 today, most experts think that both the qualitative and quantitative descriptions of the Iraqi army at the time were exaggerated, as they included both temporary and auxiliary support elements. Many of the Iraqi troops were also young, under-resourced and poorly trained conscripts. Hussein did not trust the army. Among counterbalancing security forces was the Iraqi Popular Army. The widespread support for Iraq during the Iran-Iraq War meant Iraq had military equipment from almost every major dealer of the world's weapons market. This resulted in a lack of standardization in this large heterogeneous force, which additionally suffered from poor training and poor motivation. The majority of Iraqi armored forces still used old Chinese Type 59s and Type 69s, Soviet-made T-55s from the 1950s and 1960s, and some T-72s from the 1970s and 1991. These machines were not equipped with up-to-date equipment, such as thermal sights or laser rangefinders, and their effectiveness in modern combat was very limited. The Iraqis failed to find an effective countermeasure to the thermal sights and the sabot rounds used by the M1 Abrams, Challenger 1 and the other coalition tanks. This equipment enabled coalition tanks to effectively engage and destroy Iraqi tanks from more than 3 times the distance that Iraqi tanks could engage. The Iraqi tank crews used old, cheap steel penetrators against the advanced Cobham armor of these US and British tanks, with disastrous results. The Iraqi forces also failed to utilize the advantage that could be gained from using urban warfare fighting within Kuwait City which could have inflicted significant casualties on the attacking forces. Urban combat reduces the range at which fighting occurs and can negate some of the technological advantage that well-equipped forces enjoy. Iraqis also tried to use Soviet military doctrine, but the implementation failed due to the lack of skill of their commanders and the preventive airstrikes of the USAF and RAF on communication centers and bunkers. While the exact number of Iraqi combat casualties has yet to be firmly determined, sources agree that the losses were substantial. Immediate estimates said up to 100,000 Iraqis were killed. More recent estimates indicate that Iraq probably sustained between 20,000 and 35,000 fatalities, though other figures still maintain fatalities could have been as high as 200,000. A report commissioned by the U.S. Air Force estimated 10,000 to 12,000 Iraqi combat deaths in the air campaign and as many as 10,000 casualties in the ground war. This analysis is based on Iraqi prisoner of war reports. It is known that between 20,000 and 200,000 Iraqi soldiers were killed. According to the Project on Defense Alternative study, 3,664 Iraqi civilians and between 20,000 and 26,000 military personnel were killed in the conflict. 75,000 Iraqi soldiers were wounded in the fighting. During the 1990s, the International Institute for Strategic Studies estimated the Army's composition immediately after the 1991 war as 6 armored/mechanized divisions, 23 infantry divisions, 8 Republican Guard divisions and 4 Republican Guard internal security divisions. Jane's Defense Weekly for July 18, 1992 stated that 10,000 troops from 5 divisions were fighting against Shia Muslims in the southern marshlands. The IISS gave the Iraqi Army's force structure as of July 1, 1997 as 7 Corps headquarters, 6 armored or mechanized divisions, 12 infantry divisions, 6 AGF divisions, 4 Special Republican Guard brigades, 10 commando, and 2 Special Forces brigades. It was estimated to number 350,000 personnel, including 100,000 recently recalled reservists. Battle al-Hawazm 2003. In the days leading up to the 2003 invasion of Iraq and the following Iraq War, the army consisted of 375,000 troops, organized into 5 corps. In all, there were 11 infantry divisions, 3 mechanized divisions, and 3 armored divisions. The Republican Guard consisted of between 50,000 and 60,000 troops. In January 2003, before the start of the invasion of Iraq in March 2003, the force was primarily located in eastern Iraq. The 5 corps were organized as follows. 1st Corps, near Kirkuk, consisted of the 5th Mechanized Division, 2nd Infantry Division, 8th Infantry Division and the 38th Infantry Division. 2nd Corps, near Dilla, had the 3rd Armored Division, 15th Infantry Division, and 34th Infantry Division. 3rd Corps, near An-Nasiriyah, had the 6th Armored Division, the 51st Mechanized Division, and the 11th Infantry Division. 4th Corps, near Amara, included the 10th Armored Division, 14th Infantry Division and 18th Infantry Division. 5th Corps, near Mosul, had the 1st Mechanized Division, and the 4th, 7th, and 16th Infantry Divisions. Western Desert Force, consisting of an armored infantry division and other units in western Iraq. During the 2003 invasion of Iraq, the Iraqi Army was defeated in a number of battles, including by Task Force Viking in the north, and the Battle of Nasiriyah and the Battle of Baghdad. The Iraqi Army was disbanded by Coalition Provisional Authority Order No. 2 issued by U.S. Administrator of Iraq Paul Bremer on May 23, 2003 after its decisive defeat during the Second Gulf War. Bremer said that it was not feasible to reconstitute the armed forces. His justifications for the disbandment included post-war looting, which had destroyed all the bases. That the largely Shiite draftees of the army would not respond to a recall plea from their former commanders, who were primarily Sunnis, and that recalling the army would be a political disaster because to the vast majority of Iraqis it was a symbol of the old Ba'athist-led Sunni ascendancy. Formations of the Army 1922–2003, Corps I Corps II Corps, reorganized as an armored corps for the Persian Gulf War, comprising the 17th Armored Division and the 51st Mechanized Division III Corps. In 2003, Nasiriyah was the headquarters of the Iraqi Army's 3rd Corps, composed of the 11th ID, 51st Mech ID, and 6th Armored Division all at around 50% strength. The 51st operated south covering the oil fields, and the 6th was north near Al-Amara, which left 3 brigade-sized elements of the 11th ID to guard the An-Nasiriyah area. 4 Corps V Corps 6 Corps 7 Corps, Jihad Forces, Persian Gulf War, Infantry and Mechanized Divisions, 1st Division, active from at least 1941 1st Mechanized Division in Persian Gulf War and Iraq War. Reformed after 2003 2nd Division, active from at least 1941 3rd Division, active from at least 1941 4th Division, active from at least 1941 5th Division, activated 1959. As 5th Mechanized Division, fought in Battle of Khafji. 7th Division, served in 2nd Battle of Al-Fur 1988 8th Division, 11th Division, Persian Gulf War, 14th, 15th, 16th, 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th Divisions, 26th, 27th, 28th, 28th, 30th, 31st, 33rd, 34th, 36th, 37th, 38th Divisions, 39th, 42nd, 44th, 45th, 46th, 47th, 48th, 49th, 50th, 53rd, 54th, 56th Divisions. Eisenstadt reported about 8 infantry divisions remain unaccounted for as of March 1993. Armored divisions up to 2003 3rd Armored Division, active by 1967, served in Yom Kippur War, Operation Ramadan, Iran-Iraq War, 6th Armored Division, served in Yom Kippur War, 1988 Blessed Ramadan Offensive, 9th Armored Division, served in Iran-Iraq War, disbanded after First Battle of Basra Operation Ramadan, July 1982. Reformed after 2003 10th Armored Division, served in Iran-Iraq War, in Persian Gulf War with Jihad Forces, 12th Armored Division, served in Persian Gulf War with Jihad Forces, 17th Armored Division, 3, 52nd Armored Division, Brigades, the 65th Special Forces Brigade, 66th Special Forces Brigade, 68th Special Forces Brigade, and 440th Marine Brigade were active during the Persian Gulf War. Reform of the Army. Based on Bush administration expectations that coalition forces would be welcomed as liberators after the overthrow of the Hussein regime, pre-war planners had only been expecting little if any resistance from the Iraqi people. Thus the new army was initially focused on external defense operations. The new army was originally intended to comprise 27 battalions and 3 divisions numbering 40,000 soldiers in 3 years' time. Vinnell Corporation was engaged to train the first 9 battalions. The Coalition Military Assistance Training Team, headed by Major General Paul Eaton, was the organization set up by the United States military with the responsibility of training and development of the new army. On August 2, 2003, the 1st Battalion of new Iraqi Army recruits started a 9-week training course at a training base in Karakosh. They graduated on October 4, 2003. Training of Iraqi forces was initially done by Vinnell Corporation contractors. On April 5, 2004, several Iraqi battalions refused to fight as part of the force engaged in the First Battle of Fallujah. In June 2004, the CMATT was dissolved, and passed on its responsibilities to the Multinational Security Transition Command, Iraq, with a new focus on providing security for the Iraqi people from the emerging threat posed by the Iraqi insurgency. While the regular army was being formed, U.S. commanders around the country needed additional troops more quickly, and thus the Iraqi Civil Defense Corps was formed. Coalition commanders formed these militia-type units separately in each area. Only later were they gradually brought together as one force. There were several instances where they have refused to take military action against fellow Iraqis, such as in Fallujah, deserted, or allegedly aided the resistance. It is alleged that most guardsmen were drawn from the Shia majority in southern Iraq or the Kurdish majority in northern Iraq, rather than from the Sunni area which they were ordered to attack. In September 2004, a senior member of the National Guard, General Talib al-Lahibi, was arrested on suspicion of having links with insurgent groups. In December 2004, it was announced that the Iraqi National Guard would be dissolved. At this time its strength was officially over 40,000 men. Its units became part of the army. The absorption of the ING by the regular army appears to have taken place on January 6, 2005, Iraqi Army Day. On August 14, 2004, the NATO training mission, Iraq, was established to assist the Iraqi military, including the army. On September 20 the Provisional Fallujah Brigade dissolved after being sent in to secure the city. The Fallujah Brigade experiment of using former insurgents to secure a city was not repeated. Army training was transferred from Vinnell Corporation to the United States Armed Forces supported by U.S. allies, and is now done by 3 Iraqi training battalions. Training has been impeded by domestic instability, infiltration by insurgents, and high desertion rates. From June 2004, the partnership between coalition forces and Iraqi forces has increased due to the growing number of battalions in the Iraqi army, which then stood around 115. Out of this number, it was deemed that 80 of them were able to carry out operations in the field with coalition support limited to logistics and strategic planning, whilst another 20 to 30 battalions still needed major coalition support to carry out their operations. As of October 5, 2005, the Iraqi army had 90 battalions trained well enough to be deployed independently, that is without the help of others such as the United States. On May 3, 2006, a significant command and control development took place. the Iraqi Army Command and Control Center opened in a ceremony at the Iraqi Ground Forces Command Headquarters at Camp Victory. The IGFC was established to exercise command and control of assigned Iraqi Army forces and, upon assuming operational control, to plan and direct operations to defeat the Iraqi insurgency. At the time, the IFGC was commanded by Lieutenant General Abdul Qadir. In 2006 the 10 planned divisions began to be certified and assume battlespace responsibility, the 6th and 8th before June 26, 2006, the 9th on June 26, 2006, the 5th on July 3, 2006, the 4th on August 8, 2006, and the 2nd on December 21, 2006. After divisions were certified, they began to be transferred from U.S. operational control to Iraqi control of the IGFC. The 8th Division was transferred on September 7, 2006, and the 3rd Division on December 1, 2006. Another unspecified division also was transferred to IGFC control. Also transferred to the Iraqi chain of command were smaller logistics units. On November 1, 2006, the 5th Motor Transport Regiment was the 5th of 9 MTRs to be transferred to the Iraqi Army divisions. 2007 plans included, MNFI said, great efforts to make the Iraqi Army able to sustain itself logistically. As of June 26, 2006, 3 Iraqi divisions, 18 brigades and 69 battalions were in control of battle space. 2008. On March 25, 2008, the Iraqi Army launched its first solely planned and executed high-profile division-level operation, Operation Charge of the Nights in Basra. They received multinational force, Iraq support only in air support, logistics and via embedded advisors. Also, a British infantry brigade, part of Multinational Division Southeast, and stationed in Basra, were ready in a tactical overwatch role. Their participation was limited to the provision of embedded training teams. In April-June 2008, 2 brigades of the Iraqi Army 11th Division, supported by U.S. forces, moved into the southern third of Sadr city. They were tasked to stop rocket and mortar attacks on U.S. bases in the Green Zone. Following the siege of Sadr city, a month of fighting, the Mahdi Army agrees to let Iraqi forces into the remaining portion of the city. On May 20, troops from the Iraqi Army 3rd Brigade of the 1st Division and a brigade from the 9th Division move into the northern districts of Sadr city and begin clearing operations. Iraqi Army forces launch Operation Lion's Roar in Mosul and surrounding areas of Nineveh province. Iraq became one of the top current purchasers of U.S. military equipment, with their army trading its AK-47 assault rifles for the more accurate U.S. M16 and M4 rifles, among other equipment. In June 2008 the army moved troops to the southern Maysan province. Following a 4-day amnesty for insurgents to turn over weapons, the Iraqi army moved into the provincial capital Amara. Structural capacities still lacking within the army include the lack of any formalized apparatus for the collection of military intelligence. Currently it must rely on intelligence provided by the United States for the majority of its operations. Developing a professional intelligence corps to augment the effectiveness of the Iraqi army remains an ongoing challenge. In addition, the army presently must rely on U.S. logistical support to conduct the majority of its operations. It currently lacks critical support services such as transportation, medevac capabilities, and medical logistics. Until the Iraqi army can develop these capabilities, it will continue to depend on U.S. forces for support. A military justice system also remains to be developed. 2 further problems are infiltration and an insufficient U.S. advisory effort. The new army aimed to exclude recruits that are former regime security and intelligence organizations members, personnel of the Special Republican Guard, top-level Ba'ath Party members, and Ba'ath Party security and militia organizations. However, the army is widely known to have been infiltrated by a multitude of groups ranging from local militias to foreign insurgents. This has led to highly publicized deaths and compromised operations. Structure: the Iraqi army began the Anglo-Iraqi War with a force of 4 divisions. A 5th was formed in 1959. By the outbreak of the Iran-Iraq War, the force had grown to 9 divisions. By 1990, with wartime expansion, the force had grown greatly to at least 56 divisions, making the Iraqi Army the 4th largest army in the world and one of the strongest in the Middle East. After the defeat in the Persian Gulf War in 1991, force size dropped to around 23 divisions, as well as Republican Guard formations. The new army formed after 2003 was initially planned to be 3 divisions strong, but was then raised to 10 divisions, and the force is now expected to grow to 20 divisions. The U.S. House Armed Services Committee commented in 2007 that it is important to note that in the initial fielding plan, 5 Army divisions would be tied to the regions from where they were recruited and the other 5 would be deployable throughout Iraq. This was partially due to the legacy of some Army divisions being formed from the National Guard units and has caused some complications in terms of making these forces available for operations in all areas of Iraq, and the military becoming a truly national, non-sectarian force. According to the United States Department of Defense Measuring Safety and Security in Iraq report of August 2006, plans at that time called for the Iraqi army to be built up to an approximately 300,000-person force. This was based around an army with 10 infantry divisions and 6 mechanized infantry division consisting of 36 brigades and 113 battalions. 9 motorized transportation regiments, 5 logistics battalions, 2 support battalions, 5 regional support units, and 91 garrison support units are intended to provide logistics and support for each division, with Taji National Depot providing depot-level maintenance and resupply. Each battalion, brigade, and division headquarters will be supported by a headquarters and service company providing logistical and maintenance support to its parent organization. The Army will also include 17 SIBs and a Special Operations Forces Brigade consisting of 2 Special Operational Battalions. Current status: the Iraqi Army consists of 9 regional joint commands. The Joint Operational Commands fall under the command of the National Operations Center. The Iraqi Ground Forces Command does not directly command the Army's divisions. As of July 2009, the Iraqi Army had 14 divisions, containing 56 brigades or 185 combat battalions. The 6th Division and the 17th Division are still missing their 4th Maneuver Brigades. By April 2010, the combat battalion total had risen to 197 combat battalions. Each division has 4 line brigades, an engineering regiment, and a support regiment. In 2009, a field artillery regiment was planned to be added to each division, with an artillery battalion added to each brigade. As of April 2010, the 9th Division was the only division with field artillery, with another division also receiving its first artillery pieces. 3 of the 56 brigades are not Iraqi Ground Forces Command combatant brigades and are not assigned to a division. They are the Baghdad Brigade formed in the fall of 2008. The 1st Presidential Brigade formed in January 2008, and the new 2nd Presidential Brigade formed in the spring of 2009. These 3 independent Euro-OE Praetoriani Euro security brigades are still building and only have 6 combat battalions between them. Budget problems are continuing to hinder the manning of combat support and combat service support units. The lack of soldiers entering boot camp is forcing Iraqi leaders at all levels to face the dual challenge of manning and training enabler units out of existing manpower. Divisions are forming engineer, logistics, mortar, and other units by identifying overstrength units, such as the intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance battalions and other headquarters elements, and then transferring them as needed. Recently, the Ministry of Defense issued an order to all Iraqi Army divisions requiring analysis on the effect of dissolving the 4th Battalion in each brigade and using those soldiers to man enabler units throughout the Army. The new Army continues preparation for the fielding of 120mm mortar batteries and 81mm mortar platoons. The start of unit mortar fielding was planned in July 2008. The Iraqi Special Operations Forces are a Ministry of Defense-funded component that reports directly to the Prime Minister of Iraq. Structure: as of August 2009, each of the Joint Operational Commands also include DBE, Federal Police, Emergency Police, Oil Police, FPS, etc. in their command as well as Iraqi Army. As of fall 2012, the Iraqi Army is organized as follows: National Operations Center Baghdad, Baghdad Operational Commander Baghdad Lieutenant General Abutkhanbar, KARKH Area Command, Western Baghdad. Responsible for the Kadhimiya or KARKH, Mansour, Bayah, and Dora security districts. Rusayfa Area Command, Eastern Baghdad. Responsible for the Adamiyah or Rusayfa, Sadiyah City, New Baghdad, and Karadar security districts. 6th Motorized Division, Western Baghdad, 9th Armored Division Taji Division certified and assumes responsibility of the battle space of North Baghdad Governorate June 26, 2006. 11th Infantry Division East Baghdad, 17th Commando Division Headquarters Mahmudiyah. The 17th Division Commander has been reported as Staff Major General Ali Jassam Muhammad. 23rd Commando Brigade, 25th Commando Brigade Baghdad Eagles former 4th BDE, 6th Divide. Has received commando training by U.S. Special Forces and Air Assault Training. 55th Commando Brigade. Ninya Operational Command, Mosul, 2nd Division Mosul, 3rd Motorized Division Al-Qasik, 15th Division 16th Division Dilla Operational Command, Sulaymaniyah, Dilla, Kirkuk, Salahuddin, 4th Motorized Division Tikrit Division certified August 8, 2006. 5th Infantry Division Dilla Governorate Division certified July 3, 2006. 12th Motorized Division Tikrit split off from 4 Division mid-2008. Basra Operational Command Basra, 8th Commando Division Headquarters Diwaniyah, 10th Division and Nasiriyah, 14th Division Basra, Division Commander Major General Abdulaziz Nur Swadi al-Dalmi, 4. Abbar Operational Command Ramadi, 1st Infantry Division Fallujah, 7th Infantry Division Ramadi, West Al-Abba Province transferred to Iraqi Ground Forces Command, November 1, 2007. Rank Insignia. Training. There are 3 levels of troop capability in the new Army, 1, 2, and 3. Level 3 refers to troops that have just completed basic training, Level 2 refers to troops that are able to work with soldiers, and Level 1 refers to troops that can work by themselves. Members of NATO training mission Iraq opened a joint staff college in Al-Rustamiyah in Baghdad on September 27, 2005 with 300 trainers. Training at bases in Norway, Italy, Jordan, Germany, and Egypt has also taken place, and 16 NATO countries have allocated forces to the training effort. The multinational force Iraq has also conducted a variety of training programs for both enlisted men and officers, including training as medics, engineers, quartermasters, and military police. Beyond the various courses and programs being held in country, both American staff colleges and military academies have begun taking Iraqi applicants, with Iraqi cadets being enrolled at both the United States Military Academy and the U.S. Air Force Academy. Recruits and enlisted men. Iraqi Army recruits undergo a standard 8-week basic training course that includes basic soldiering skills, weapons marksmanship and individual tactics. Former soldiers are eligible for an abbreviated 3-week direct recruit replacement training course designed to replace regular basic training, to be followed by more training once they have been assigned to a unit. Soldiers later go on to enroll in more specific advanced courses targeted for their respective fields. This could involve going to the Military Intelligence School, the Signals School, the Bomb Disposal School, the Combat Arms Branch School, the Engineer School, and the Military Police School. Officers. The Iraqi Armed Service and Supply Institute located in Taji plays a significant role in training aspiring Iraqi non-commissioned officers and commissioned officers. The training is based on a Songhurst model, chosen in part due to its shorter graduation time compared to West Point. Much of the Iraqi officer training program is copied directly from the Songhurst course. CMATT's main recruiting stations are located in Baghdad, Basra and Mosul. The most desired recruits are individuals who have prior military service or are skilled in specific professions such as first aid, heavy equipment operation, food service and truck driving. A recruitment target of approximately 1,000 men is desired to eventually form a 757-man battalion. Soldier fallout usually occurs due to voluntary withdrawal or failure to meet training standards. Due to the current demand for these battalions to become active as soon as possible, the first 4 battalions' officers, non-commissioned officers, and enlisted men are being trained simultaneously. Notable differences in training between CAATT and former training under Saddam's regime include schooling in human rights, the laws of land warfare, and tolerance in a multi-ethnic team. Based on the philosophy used by the U.S. military to boost its own size in response to World War II, that an army can be built faster by focusing on the training on its leadership rather than enlisted men. CMATT has pursued a similar strategy of focusing recruitment and training on commissioned and non-commissioned officers for the remaining 23 Iraqi battalions. Upon successful completion of officer training, these groups of officers will form the battalion's leadership cadre, which will then be responsible for overseeing its own recruitment, training, and readiness of its enlisted men. It is hoped that having the Iraqi leadership train its own will overcome problems faced by CAATT's training process, namely recruitment, desertion, and unit loyalty. Military transition teams. All Iraqi Army battalions have embedded U.S. military transition teams, according to the National Strategy for Victory in Iraq. The MITs advise their Iraqi battalions in the areas of intelligence, communications, fire support, logistics and infantry tactics. Larger-scale operations are often done jointly with American battalions. This operational training aims to make the battalion self-sustainable tactically, operationally and logistically so that the battalion will be prepared to take over responsibility for battle space. The DoD reported that 6,000 advisors arranged in 480-plus teams were embedded with Iraqi units. However, in April, the Congressional Research Service reported that only around 4,000 U.S. forces were embedded with Iraqi units at a rate of 10 per battalion. Former U.S. Army analyst Andrew Krepinevich argued that the roughly 12 advisors per Iraqi battalion is less than half the sufficient amount needed to efficiently implement the combat advisory effort. Krepinevich argues that officers try to avoid taking on advisory tasks due to the U.S. Army's practice of prioritizing the promotion of officers that have served with a U.S. unit over ones that have served with foreign forces. Equipment. Virtually all of the equipment used by the former Iraqi Army was either destroyed by the U.S. and British forces during the invasion, or was looted during the chaotic aftermath shortly after the fall of the Hussein regime. 40-55 tanks however have been recovered from an old army base in al-Muqtadiyah and are now in service with the 1st Division. On February 2, 2004 the U.S. government announced that now USA was awarded a $327,485,798 contract to procure equipment for both the Iraqi Army and the Iraqi National Guard. However, this contract was cancelled in March 2004 when an internal Army investigation revealed that Army procurement officers in Iraq were violating procedures with sloppy contract language and incomplete paperwork. On May 25, 2004 the U.S. Army Tank Automotive and Armaments Command stated that they would award a contract worth $259,321,656 to ANHAM joint venture in exchange for procuring the necessary equipment for a minimum of 15 and a maximum of 35 battalions. The minimum bid would begin to be delivered immediately and further orders could be placed until the maximum of 35 battalion sets or September 2006 after the first order was fully delivered. In May 2005, Hungary agreed to donate 77 T-72s to the Iraqi Army, with the refurbishment contract going to Defense Solutions to bring the tanks up to operational status for an estimated $4.5 million US. After a delay in the payment of funds from the Iraqi government, the 9th Mechanized Division received the tanks at its headquarters in Taji over a 3-day period starting on November 8, 2005. On July 29, 2005, The United Arab Emirates gained approval to purchase 180 M113A1 APCs in good condition from Switzerland, with the intent to transfer them to Iraq as a gift. Domestic political opposition in Switzerland successfully froze the sale, fearing that the export would violate the country's long-standing tradition of neutrality as well as perhaps make Switzerland a target for terrorism. 173 M113s, 44 Panhards, and 100 FV-103 Spartans were donated by Jordan, Pakistan and UAE. 600 AMZ-3 APCs were ordered in Poland for delivery by Jan 2007. 573 Otoker-AKP APCs for delivery by Jan 2007. 756 Iraqi light armored vehicles for delivery by November 2008. Greece donated 100 BMP-1 to the Iraqi Army, 713 M1114 and 400 M1151 HMMWVs purchased for IA with delivery complete by end July 2006. Serbia has signed a $230 million deal with Iraq to sell weapons and military equipment, the Defense Ministry said in March 2008. It did not specify the weapons, but Serbian military experts believe they include Serbian-made CZ-99 handguns, Zastava M21 5.56mm assault rifles, Zastava M84 machine guns, anti-tank weapons, ammunition and explosives and about 20 Laster 95 basic trainer aircraft. Iraq's Defense Minister Abdul Qadir al-Obeidi visited Belgrade in September and November to discuss boosting military ties with Serbia. In August 2008, the United States has proposed military sales to Iraq, which will include the latest upgraded M1A1 Abrams battle tanks, attack helicopters, Stryker armored vehicles, modern radios, all to be valued at an estimated $2.16 billion. In December 2008, the United States approved a $6 billion arms deal with Iraq that included 140 M1A1 Abrams tanks and 400 Stryker combat vehicles for elite Iraqi Army units. In February 2009, the U.S. military announced it had struck deals with Iraq that will see Baghdad spend $5 billion on American-made weapons, equipment and training. Uniforms and personal weapons. The average Iraqi soldier is equipped with an assortment of uniforms ranging from the desert camouflage uniform, the 6-color chocolate chip DBDU, the woodland pattern BDU, the U.S. Marine Corps MARPAT, or Jordanian KA-7. Nearly all have a PASGT ballistic helmet, Generation IOTV ballistic vest, and radio. Their light weapons consist of stocks of Soviet-era arms, namely the Russian AKM and the Chinese Type 56 assault rifles, as well as the PKM machine gun, though they have received assistance from the U.S. in the form of American-made weapons, including M16A2 and M16A4 rifles and M4 carbines. However, weapons registration is poor. A 2006 report by the Special Inspector General for Iraq Reconstruction notes that out of the 370,000 weapons turned over to the U.S. since the fall of Saddam's regime, only 12,000 serial numbers have been recorded. The lack of proper accounting for these weapons makes the acquisition of small arms by anti-governmental forces such as insurgents or sectarian militias much easier. Military vehicles, main battle tanks. T-55, T-72, Type 69, M1A1 Abrams, Armored Fighting Vehicles, AMZ-ZIC, BMP-1, BTR-4, BTR-80, BTR-94, EE-9 Cascavel, Iraqi Light Armored Vehicle, M1117, M113, MTLB, Otoker-AKP, Panhard AML, Panhard M3, Military Trucks, BTR-152, GAZ-63, GAZ-66, Humvee, Heavy Expanded Mobility Tactical Truck, M939 Truck, UAZ, ZIL-131, Howitzers and Rocket Launchers, 122 mm Howitzer 2A18, 122 mm Howitzer. M1938, 130 mm Towed Field Gun M1954, 152 mm Towed Gun Howitzer M1955, M198 Howitzer, M109 Howitzer, TOS-1. Notable members: Staff Major General Nasser al-Hitti, Lieutenant General Qadir Abidi. See also, Iraqi Army ranks Insignia, uniforms of Iraqi Armed Forces, Iraqi Air Force, Iraqi Navy, ISOF, Iraqi Security Forces, Iraqi Republican Guard. Notes. References: Al-Marashi, Ibrahim. Salama, Sami. Iraq's Armed Forces, An Analytical History. Oxon in New York, Routledge. PA 254. ISBN A0-415-40078-3. Lyman, Robert. Iraq 1941, The Battles for Basra, Habbana, Fallujah and Baghdad. Campaign. Oxford, New York, Osprey Publishing. PA 96. ISBN A1-84176-991-6. Kenneth M. Pollack, Arabs at War, Military Effectiveness 1948-91, University of Nebraska Press, Lincoln and London, 2002, and Pollack's book reviewed in International Security, Volume 28, No. 2. Further reading, Hamdani, Raw Euro Unregistered Trademark Ad. Before History Left Us. Beirut, Arab Scientific Publishers, 2006. TZV IOFA, The Iraqi Army in the Yom Kippur War, TRANSL. Herzliya, Tel Aviv, Me'arakot, 1986, Michael Knights, A Euro-OE Free Reign, Domestic Security Forces Takeover in Iraq, A Euro-Janes Intelligence Review, http, www.janes.com/Security-10110441NS/HTML. Loose ends. Iraq's security forces between U.S. drawdown and withdrawal. Kevin M. Woods, Williamson Murray, and Thomas Holliday, with Munir Ilkamri, Saddam's War, An Iraqi Military Perspective of the Iran-Iraq War, McNair Papers 70, INSSNDU, Washington, D.C., 2009. External links, blog on Iraqi forces by former Naval Intelligence Officer D.J. Elliott, www.365iniraq.com. Articles and pictures from an Iraqi Army transition team, building Iraqi security force. CISA hearing before the Subcommittee on National Security, Emerging Threats and International Relations of the Committee on Government Reform, House of Representatives, March 14, 2005, Rebuilding Iraq, Resource, Security, Governance, Essential Services, and Oversight Issues. United States General Accounting Office Report to Congressional Committees, June, 2004, Cordsman, Anthony H. A prepared statement before the Subcommittee on National Security, Emerging Threats, and International Relations of the Committee on Government Reform, March 14, 2005, Cordsman, Anthony H., Iraqi Security Forces, Praeger CSIS, 2006 ISBN 0-275-98908-9, Cordsman, Anthony H., Iraqi Force Development, A Current Status Report July 2005 February 2006, February 15, 2006, America's Old Humvees Add New Luster to Iraqi Fleet, Christian Science Monitor, March 17, 2008. Blog on Iraqi forces by former Naval Intelligence Officer D.J. Elliott, Russia Euro Unregistered Trademark S. Bunker smashing rockets have arrived in Iraq.